Chapter 10. The Merry Outlaws. Aunt Bridget stood in the doorway. Lightning flickered at the window and was reflected in her granny glasses. Scones, said this Oxford lecturer, head of Sapphire, Jailbird and Mastermind. She licked her lips with a pink tongue. Can I have one, Goody? Without waiting for an answer, she pulled a stool to the flowery table and reached for the knife and butter. Gorgeous! She took a bite and closed her eyes. I adore scones. Seems to run in the family, Mrs. Good said dryly, and looked at Harry. Go on then, you might as well have another one. But don't you dare say you haven't got room for your dinner. Harry stretched out a hand and burped. Aunt Bridget smiled. Well, young man, closer and closer to the heart of our little secret. You don't waste any time, do you? Her clever blue eyes wrinkled, but she was serious. You're resourceful, you have imagination, I like that. But before I tell you what we're all doing here at Lag Hall, the last piece of the jigsaw, I want you to understand one thing. It must be a secret. All of it. Something that mad vampires and Chinese torturers couldn't drag out of you. Or, much more dangerous than that, friends. You must never blab. One word in the wrong place and we're finished here. Kaput, finito, a ghost bolt. The end of Lag Hall. The bright spectacles regarded him. Can you keep a secret like that? I think so, said Harry. Think isn't good enough. Actually, I know I can, Harry said. I've had practice all my life with Gestapo Lil. Of course, I should have thought of that. Broken rules must have been the only way to survive. Aunt Bridget patted his hand and took another bite of scone. Scrumptious, really delicious, Goody. I'll let you into a little secret, said Mrs. Good. Harry made them. What? Never, I don't believe you. I did, Harry grinned delightedly. Right from the flour bag and jug of milk, said Mrs. Good. Is there no end to my nephew's talents? Tree climber, swimmer, ghostbuster extraordinary. She sucked buttery fingers. Incidentally, since you mention her, we had a letter from that lady this morning, your favourite nurse and housekeeper. Gestapo Lil? What did she say? Well, more or less what you'd led us to expect. How she's looked after you all these years, how she gave up a good career for it, what a difficult child you've been, all the promises your father made, according to her, how shattered she's been by their tragic deaths, and what she's going to do now, house prices being the way they are. She shrugged. Basically, she just wants money. Oh, the cheeky besom, Mrs. Good pursed her lips. How much? Well, she didn't name a precise figure, but reading between the lines, 10 to 15,000, maybe 20. £20,000? Harry's voice was a shout. You're not going to give her anything, are you? Of course not, Aunt Bridget smiled. What do you think? I've replied, though. Nutty posted it this morning. What did you say? I'll leave that to your imagination, but I think it's a fair bet we won't be hearing from Miss Lavinia McScrew anymore. I wouldn't count on it. You don't know what she's like. Well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. No need for you to worry anyway. She's gone out of your life. You don't live in Hampstead anymore. You live at Lag Hall. You've got Goody and Tangle and the rest of us on your side now. Isn't that right, Goody? It certainly is. Mrs. Good topped up their teacups. If that woman came through the door this minute, well, I don't know what I'd do, but she wouldn't forget in a hurry, I can tell you. Well said, and that goes for the rest of us too. Aunt Bridget turned to Harry. But what were we talking about? Ah, yes, our little band of soldiers. Did Goody tell you about Sapphire? Yep. Happy days. Well, in Sapphire, we had a little set of rules. Number 1 was daring and adventure. Number 2 was that we wouldn't hurt anybody nice. And number 3 was that we wouldn't rob anyone who couldn't afford it. Harry twisted his legs comfortably round the stool and settled his chin on his hands. Well, we were in Holloway Prison, Aunt Bridget continued. I had plenty of time to think, weeks and months and years. And it came to me that all over the country there are people and organisations who have more money than they need to do with, than they know what to do with. Rich people, really rich, filthy rich, millions and billions, some of them. Nice families, children's, pensioners, charities and down and outs who desperately need money all over the country. Poor people, starving some of them, homeless, sick, and all for the want of a few pounds. It seemed unfair, very unfair. Something should be done about it. Then, one night, in a blinding flash, it came to me, like a vision. All at once I realised that people like us, criminal in jails, had the skills to do something about it. Instead of stealing for ourselves, we could steal to help the others. Take some money from the rich, give it to the poor. I was so startled, I jumped out of bed. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. Beyond the bars on my cell window, I could see the sleeping roofs of London. I'll never forget it. Like some great bird, Aunt Bridget perched on the edge of her stall. Listen, if you want to build a house, what do you need? You need tradesmen, don't you? Bricklayers, plumbers, joiners, and so on. They make a team. It's the same way for any operation. Running a school, making a film, winning a war. You need a team. And if you want to take money from lots of people, it's exactly the same. Teamwork. A team of specialists. And it came to me, right there in Holloway, we had all the specialists, all the skills we needed, every kind of criminal known to man. But that wasn't enough. For the scheme I had in mind, I wanted the best. And maybe the best were men. They wouldn't be in Holloway, because that's the women's prison. They'd be in Strangeways, or Barlinnie, or Wormwood Scrubs. Maybe they weren't in prison at all. Anyway, I began asking, and slowly, one at a time, the people I was looking for began to pop out of the woodwork. People who liked the sound of the great idea. People who took pride in their work. People who wanted a chance to do something for somebody else for a change. Something generous and kind. Also, I was looking for people of a certain age. Flora and I weren't as young as we used to be, and I decided to use a retirement home as a cover. So what skills did we need? Well, I made a list. Aunt Bridget counted them off on her fingers. Firstly, we needed a planner. Someone to run the whole operation. That would be me. A getaway driver. Florrie would be with me, of course. She's the best in the business. A safe cracker. Someone to pick locks. Fingers Peterman. A cat burglar. Dottie Skylark. A con man. An actor who could play Parks. Maxime Burgess. A forger for documents and signatures. Angus McGregor's in a class of his own. A pickpocket to get information and switch things around. Dear Ortilochus. And finally, in case the going got rough, some muscle. Hucky Bear. And that's our team. 8 specialists, all top of the tree, all dedicated to the perfection of their art. A little community of friends who want to make the world a fairer, happier place. A house full of antique jailbirds who like to have a bit of fun. Absently, Aunt Bridget lit the tip of a finger and picked some crumbs up from the table. I'm not saying that one or two of us might not be a bit naughty from time to time, like poor Mr. Tolly. After all, we're only human. Does anyone know you're here? Said Harry. I mean, apart from Colonel Priestley, Lag Hall's so hidden away, you can't see it from anywhere, not for miles. Well, 1 or 2 people, postmen, tradesmen, but as far as possible, it's our little hideaway. They all think it's a retirement home. They see the ancient car, have a cheery word with the old folk, deliver the pension books, but nobody, absolutely nobody, knows who we are and what we do. Nobody knows our little secret. They'll never find it out from me. Harry spat on a forefinger and drew it across his throat. Promise, promise, hope to die. Chop me up and make a pie. Aunt Bridget cuffed him affectionately across the side of the head. She rose. It stopped raining. The clouds were opening. Sunlit lit the flowers, and vegetable garden glinting on the raindrops. Aunt Bridget, Harry said, you know in Oxford you had a name for your group. The Sapphire Lady Adventurers, she completed. Yes. Well, have you got a name like that here? Now we're at Lag Hall. Aunt Bridget raised her fingers at the thing. We haven't actually. We've never got round to it somehow. Well, it's like Robin Hood, really, isn't it? Said Harry. Robbing the rich to give to the poor. Exactly. Aunt Bridget was delighted. Just like Robin of Sherwood. But they were all young, weren't they? We were old enough to be their grannies and granddads. Not really, Harry said politely. Oh, of course we are, dear. As she dried her hands, Aunt Bridget examined herself in the kitchen mirror. A load of old fogies. Should be in a museum along with the fossils and the dodos. Crumblies. Isn't that the modern slang? Crumblies and wrinklies. But the people here aren't like that. They don't seem old at all. It's nice to hear, she said. I wonder why. Anyway, can you see any other similarities between Robin Hood and the people here? They were a band of brothers, said Harry. That's I hear. Good. And they were called Robin Hood and his merry men. So they were all happy and having adventures and doing good. We try our best. Any more? Well, they lived in Sherwood Forest. They hid away among the trees, and Lag Hall is surrounded by woods. Excellent, said his aunt. And the sheriff was after them as well, but we won't talk about that. She rescued a butterfly that had blundered through the open window. And you were asking about a name. Any suggestions? You could call yourself the New Robin Hoods. That's not very original. The Forest Gang. Harry thought hard. Greenwood 8. That's better, I like that. But these are all Robin Hood ideas. How about something totally different? Something that's just us. Like, Aunt Bridget gave a little smile, the Wrinklies of Lag Hall. Harry giggled. What nonsense, Bridget. The Wrinklies of... Mrs. Good tutted. Why, Harry likes it. Don't you think it's got a certain style? I do not. You couldn't say Lag Hall, Harry said. It would give the game away. Just the Wrinklies, then? Said Mrs. Good. It's accurate. It's ridiculous, and well you know it. I think it's a hoot, Aunt Bridget laughed. We could get Angel to design a logo. Leave one every time we do a job. You and your imagination. Now stop it, Bridget. It's not really accurate, Harry said. In what way? Because there's me now. How do you mean? Well, I'm not old, am I? It would have to be the Wrinklies and Harry. You? My dear Harry, you don't think you're going to join us in our little escapades, do you? Harry nodded. Good gracious. Why not? Why not? Because you're 11 years old. That's why not. Because we care for you. Because it's dangerous. That's why not. But Aunt Bridget, I can... I'm sure you can, Harry. You're a capable boy. But there's no discussion about it. You're not coming, ever, and that's that. The idea of it, said Mrs. Good.